They say rejection kills you twice. First, when the bond snaps, that sharp, brutal severing that feels like someone reached into your chest and ripped out everything warm. And second, when you realize the person who rejected you was right all along. At least, that's what I thought. Standing at the Ashmont Pack border with $300 and a backpack that smelled like my childhood bedroom, I was pretty sure I knew which death hurt worse. Spoiler alert, I was wrong about everything. Because 2 years later, I'd be standing in a castle garden with rainbow light pouring from my hands, 2 dying children gasping back to life at my feet, and the most powerful alpha in the Northern Territories staring at me like I'd just rewritten the laws of physics. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start with the night they called me broken. The night my wolf decided she'd rather be nothing than be normal. The night everything I thought I knew about myself turned out to be a lie. And if this story hits you the way it hit me, if you feel every twist, every betrayal, every moment of hope clawing its way back from the darkness, do me a favor. Hit that like button, smash subscribe, because trust me, you're going to want to see where this goes. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, because I want to know I'm not alone in believing that sometimes being broken is just another word for becoming something extraordinary. Now, let's get into it. Chapter 1. The blood moon hung fat and red over the Ashmont Pack territory, which was either poetic timing or the moon goddess had a sick sense of humor. I was betting on the latter. Sir, I stood in the center of the ceremonial circle, 23 years old and barefoot in the dirt, wearing the traditional white dress they made you wear for rank declarations. It was supposed to be a celebration. The moment a wolf officially claimed their place in the pack hierarchy. For me, it felt more like a funeral. The entire pack surrounded the circle, maybe 300 wolves, all watching with expressions that ranged from pity to disgust to morbid curiosity. I could smell their anxiety on the wind, sharp and acrid. My wolf didn't help. She never did. Even now, caged behind my ribs, she made the air around me shimmer wrong. Like heat waves off summer asphalt, but cold. Wrong cold. Elder Tabor stepped forward, his weathered face grave. He'd been the one to deliver me when I was born. He'd also been the one to declare my mother's death 12 years later. Now he got to do this. Lyneth Ashmont. His voice carried across the circle, formal and final. You have reached your 23rd year. The time has come to declare your rank before the moon goddess and this pack. I lifted my chin. My eyes, those cursed, flickering things, met his. I watched him flinch. I'm ready, I said. My voice didn't shake. Small victory. Tabor gestured to the stone altar beside him, where a silver bowl sat filled with moon-blessed water. Place your hands in the water. Let your wolf rise. Let the goddess reveal what you are. I'd done this before. 3 times, actually. Once at 16, when most wolves got their rank. Once at 18, when they thought maybe I was just a late bloomer. And once at 21, when desperation made them try alternative methods involving herbal smoke and chanting that gave me a headache for 3 days. None of it worked. But pack law was pack law. 3rd attempt at 23 was the final shot. After this, you were declared, or you were something else. I walked to the altar. My bare feet left prints in the consecrated dirt. I could feel eyes tracking every step, some hopeful, most resigned. The water was ice cold when I plunged my hands in. I closed my eyes and did what I'd been taught since childhood. I reached for my wolf. She was there. She was always there. A presence just beneath my skin, powerful and wild and absolutely, completely wrong, according to every test the pack had ever administered. Come on, I thought at her. Just this once. Pick a color. Any color. Gold, silver, amber. I don't care. Just give them something they can understand. My wolf stirred. I felt her rise like a tide, felt her energy pour through my veins and into the blessed water. The water started to glow. Gold, the color of alphas, of leaders, of strength. I heard gasps. Hope flickered in my chest. The gold shifted to silver. Beta energy, steady and loyal. My father made a sound. I didn't look at him. The silver melted into amber. Omega warmth, nurturing, and essential. And then the colors started cycling. Gold, silver, amber, faster and faster until they blurred together into something that looked like oil on water. Prismatic, beautiful, completely unnatural. Enough! Tabor's command cracked through the air. I yanked my hands from the bowl. The water went dark immediately, just plain water again. My wolf retreated, and I felt her confusion like my own. She didn't understand why they always reacted this way, why her energy made grown wolves back away and pups cry. She didn't understand that she was a glitch. Tabor turned to address the pack, but I already knew what he was going to say. I'd known for years. Lyneth Ashmont's wolf cannot be ranked, he announced. Her energy destabilizes pack bonds within 50 feet. Pups become distressed. Ranked wolves experience aggression and confusion. After 3 failed declarations, and by the authority granted to me by the Council of Elders, I declare Lyneth Ashmont a null wolf. Null wolf. The term hadn't been used in 3 centuries. It meant exactly what it sounded like. A wolf that registered as nothing. A 0. An error in the moon goddess's code. My wolf is real, I said, hating how defensive I sounded. She's here. Just because you can't categorize her doesn't mean... It means... Tabor cut me off gently, which somehow hurt worse than if he'd been cruel. That your presence is a danger to pack stability. The disruption you cause isn't malicious, child, but it is undeniable. I looked around the circle, saw wolves nodding, saw my father, Beta Corwin Ashmont, standing rigid beside his new mate Regina, her hand on his arm. His face was carefully blank. He didn't speak. He never spoke. Not when Mom died, and I needed him. Not when Regina moved into our house 6 months later. Not when the pack started calling me broken. And not now. The real knife came from my left. Lynn. I turned. Garrett stepped forward from the beta section of the circle. We'd grown up together, shared sandbox conspiracies and teenage secrets, and one very awkward first kiss when we were 15. He was supposed to take over as beta next month when my father stepped down. He was also supposed to be my friend. Lynn, you know I care about you, he said, and I could hear the regret in his voice. Could also hear the resolution. But I'm becoming beta. I have responsibilities to this pack, and I can't have a mate who might endanger everyone. Oh, that's what this was. We'd never officially declared a mate bond. We'd never even talked about it seriously. But there'd been an understanding, a someday maybe, that had kept me warm on cold nights. He was rejecting a bond that didn't even fully exist yet. I'm sorry, Garrett said. The maybe bond snapped. It wasn't dramatic. No lightning strike. No supernatural pain. Just a quiet, cold severing of something that had barely begun. I didn't cry. I'd learned a long time ago that crying in front of the pack only made things worse. The council has made a decision, Tabor said. Lyneth Ashmont, you are hereby exiled from the Ashmont pack. You have until dawn to gather your belongings and leave pack territory. You will be given $300 and basic supplies. You are forbidden from returning without explicit permission from the Alpha. Exiled. The word hung in the air like smoke. I waited for someone to object. My father, Garrett, anyone. No one spoke. I understand, I said. My voice came out steady. Another small victory in a night of devastating losses. They let me go back to the house one last time. Regina had already packed my things. Efficiently, I'd give her that. One backpack with clothes, toiletries, and the photograph of my mother I kept on my nightstand. The $300 was in an envelope on top. Severance pay for being born wrong. I was escorted to the pack border by 2 guards who at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. The northern border marker was a line of white stones that glowed faintly under the blood moon. I stepped over it. The pack bond severed completely. This one did hurt. A sudden absence where there'd always been a low hum of connection. Like going deaf in one ear. I turned back once. The guards were already gone. In the distance, I could see the pack house lit up. Probably already celebrating. One less problem to deal with. You'll regret this, I whispered to the empty forest. To my father, who'd said nothing. To Garrett, who'd said too much. To the pack that never wanted to understand. All of you! It wasn't a threat. It was a promise to myself. I'd prove them wrong, somehow. I just had to figure out how. 2 years is a long time to be a ghost. I learned fast that surviving without a pack meant making yourself invisible. I moved through neutral territories like smoke, never staying long enough for questions, never getting comfortable enough to hope. The cash lasted 3 months. After that, it was waitressing jobs in werewolf-run diners where they paid under the table and didn't ask for pack registration. Yard work for elderly wolves who were too tired to care about my paperwork. One memorable week cleaning rooms at a motel that catered to rogues and asked 0 questions as long as you didn't steal the towels. I kept my head down. Kept my wolf caged so deep she was practically hibernating. Suppressing your wolf is like holding your breath underwater. You can do it for a while. But eventually, your body rebels. Eventually, you have to surface or drown. I made it 23 months before I had to surface. The night everything changed started with rain. I'd been hiking through what the gas station attendant swore was unclaimed forest, trying to reach the next town before dark. My backpack was lighter now. I'd sold most of my extra clothes months ago, but my boots were falling apart and my stomach was empty. The storm came out of nowhere. 1 minute, gray clouds. The next, the sky opened up like something biblical. Lightning split trees. Thunder shook the ground. Rain so thick I couldn't see 10 feet ahead. I ran for cover, found an outcropping of rocks, and pressed myself against the stone. Water poured down my face. My clothes were soaked through in seconds. That's when I heard it. Crying. Not animal crying, not adult crying. Children. My wolf stirred for the first time in months. Not with her usual chaotic energy, but with something sharp and focused. Pups, she seemed to say. Pups in danger. I pushed away from the rocks. Hello? I called into the storm. Is someone there? The crying got louder, desperate, terrified. I followed the sound through sheets of rain, stumbling over roots and rocks, until I found them. 2 small figures huddled under a collapsed oak tree. Children, maybe 5 years old. Identical, both with silver hair plastered to their heads and eyes that glowed even in the darkness. Not normal wolf glow. Starlight glow. Like someone had trapped the night sky in their irises. They were soaked, shivering. One was crying. The other was trying to be brave and failing. Don't hurt us. the brave one said, small voice breaking. Please. Something in my chest cracked wide open. I dropped to my knees in the mud, making myself smaller, less threatening. I'm not going to hurt you, I promise. What are you doing out here? The bad wolves, the crying one sobbed. They chased us, said we were worth money. Our guard got killed, the brave one added, teeth chattering. We ran, we got lost. Traffickers. There were wolves who made a living kidnapping pups and selling them to packs with low birth rates or worse, to humans who collected supernatural beings like trophies. My wolf didn't just stir this time. She surged, not chaos, not disruption, purpose. For the first time in 2 years, maybe in my entire life, my wolf and I were in complete agreement. Okay, I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. Okay, I've got you. Nobody's taking you anywhere. Can you walk? They nodded, but when the brave one tried to stand, their legs gave out. I caught them. Both of them. They weighed almost nothing. I didn't know who these children were. I didn't know why they smelled like moonlight and ancient pine. A scent so pure, it made my wolf whimper with something like reverence. I didn't know why my broken, useless wolf was suddenly screaming at me to protect them with a clarity I'd never experienced. I just knew one thing. I'd already lost everything once. I wasn't about to let these pups lose anything on my watch. Chapter 2. I carried both pups through the storm for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. My arms screamed. My boots squelched with every step. But I didn't stop until I found it. An old hunting cabin, half collapsed, but with enough roof intact to matter. The door hung crooked on its hinges. Inside smelled like mildew and mouse droppings, but it was dry. Mostly. I set the children down gently and immediately started searching. Found a stack of moth-eaten blankets in a wooden chest. A few pieces of dusty firewood. Matches in a rusted tin that miraculously still worked. 10 minutes later, I had a fire going in the stone fireplace, and both pups wrapped in every blanket I could find. They huddled together like puppies, which I guess they were. Their silver hair was drying into soft curls. Those starlight eyes watched my every move. I dug through my backpack and found the last of my supplies. 2 granola bars that were probably more preservatives than nutrition at this point, and a half-empty water bottle. I split the granola bars in half and handed pieces to each child. It's not much, but it's something. Eat slowly. They devoured the food like they hadn't eaten in days. Probably hadn't. The crying one, a girl, I was pretty sure, spoke first. Her voice was small and scratchy. What's your name? Lyneth, I said, crouching down to their level. What are yours? I'm Phoenix, the boy said. He had a serious face, old eyes and a young body. This is Wren. She's my sister. We're twins. Nice to meet you both. I tried for a smile. Can you tell me what happened? Why were those wolves chasing you? Wren's eyes filled with tears again. They said we were worth lots of money. They killed Uncle Brent. He was supposed to protect us, but there were too many and... She dissolved into sobs. Phoenix put his arm around his sister, a gesture so protective it made my chest ache. You're not gonna hurt us, right? His voice was steady, but his eyes were terrified. The Omega before said she'd help, but then she sold us to the hunters. My blood went cold. An Omega sold you to hunters? What hunters? The ones who want to kill Daddy. Phoenix said it so matter-of-factly, like he was discussing the weather. Your daddy? He's the Alpha King, Wren said, wiping her nose on the blanket. That's why we're not supposed to be alone. But our guard got killed, and we ran, and got lost, and... fresh tears. I sat back hard. Alpha King Rowan Blackthorn, the most powerful alpha in the Northern Territories. I'd heard stories, ruthless in battle, untouchable, unmated since his wife died years ago. The kind of wolf you didn't want to mess with under any circumstances, and I'd just accidentally kidnapped his children. No, not kidnapped, rescued. There was a difference. Okay, I said slowly, trying to keep my voice calm even though my heart was hammering. Okay, do you know how to reach your dad? A phone number? A way to mind link? Phoenix shook his head miserably. The bad wolves broke our comm devices, and Wren can't mind link yet 'cause she's not ranked. I will be able to, Wren said defensively, sitting up straighter. Daddy says late bloomers are stronger. I'm just blooming late. Despite everything, the storm, the danger, the fact that I was apparently responsible for 2 royal pups, I almost smiled. I'm sure you will be. So, how do we get home? Phoenix asked. His lip trembled. How do we find Daddy? I looked at these 2 small, terrified children, looked at my empty backpack and my broken boots and my complete lack of resources. Then, I made a decision that would change everything. Then I'll get you home, I said, wherever that is. The next 3 days were the longest of my life. We left the cabin at dawn, and I quickly realized that traveling with 2 5-year-olds while being actively hunted was significantly harder than traveling alone. Phoenix asked questions constantly. Why do trees grow up instead of sideways? How do you know which way is north? What happens if you eat a poisonous berry? Have you ever eaten a poisonous berry? Wren provided running commentary. My feet hurt. I'm hungry. Phoenix is walking too slow. Now he's walking too fast. That bird is pretty. I miss Daddy. I learned to tune out about 60% of it while staying alert for the 40% that mattered. On day 2, we stopped at a truck stop diner. Mistake. I'd managed to scrape together enough change for 1 plate of pancakes to split between the 3 of us. We were halfway through when I noticed 2 wolves at the counter watching us too closely. That's them, one whispered, not quietly enough. Silver hair, starlight eyes, the bounties 50,000 each. I didn't think. I grabbed both pups and ran. Wait, my pancakes! Wren started. Later! We burst out of the diner and I ran like hell. The wolves followed. I could hear them gaining, adult wolves, faster and stronger than me even on a good day. I yanked Phoenix and Wren through a gap between buildings, over a chain-link fence that I basically threw them over, through someone's backyard where a dog barked frantically, and finally into a drainage tunnel that came out near the highway. We collapsed in a heap, all 3 of us gasping for air. That was scary, Phoenix wheezed. That was awesome! Wren's eyes were huge. You run really fast for an Omega. I would have laughed if I could breathe. I'm not an Omega. I'm not anything. What does that mean? And just like that, sitting in a drainage ditch with 2 pups I'd known for 48 hours, I told my story. I told them about my eyes that couldn't pick a color, about being called broken, about my father's silence and Garrett's rejection and standing at the pack border with $300 and no future. When I finished, Wren looked furious. You're not broken. You're special. Right, Phoenix? Phoenix nodded so hard his whole body moved. Super special. You saved us, and you didn't even know us. And you're really good at running away from bad guys. Something cracked open in my chest. Something I'd kept locked down since the rejection ceremony. Thanks, I managed. My voice came out rough. We slept in an abandoned car that night. I stayed awake, watching the road, while Phoenix and Wren curled together like sleeping puppies. On day 3, Ren taught me about pack politics while we walked. The Alpha King has to visit all the territories, she explained importantly. That's why we travel lots. But it's dangerous because some wolves don't like Daddy. They think he's too powerful. Are there a lot of wolves who don't like him? I asked. Lots, Fenix said. That's why we have guards. Had guards. His voice went small. I squeezed his shoulder. We're going to get you home, I promise. What I didn't say, I had no idea how I was going to keep that promise. We were 2 days from Blackthorn territory, according to a map I'd stolen from a gas station, when Ren collapsed. 1 minute she was walking beside me, arguing with Fenix about whether clouds were made of cotton or water. The next, she crumpled like a puppet with cut strings. Ren! I caught her before she hit the ground. She was burning up. Her skin felt like fire. Her eyes rolled back, showing whites, and her whole body started convulsing. No, 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 Fenix sobbed. It's happening again. Again? Fenix, what do you mean again? It happened before. That's why Daddy sent us away. Tears streamed down his face. The healers said we have twin degradation syndrome. Our wolves are too connected. When one gets weak, the other suffers. They said... His voice broke. They said we might not make it to our 6th birthday. Twin degradation syndrome. I'd read about it once in an old pack medicine book. It was a death sentence. Twins whose wolves were so intertwined, they literally drained each other's life force. There was no cure. They'd just get weaker and weaker until both died. Unless there was a stabilizer. A wolf whose energy could balance both of theirs. I looked at Ren's convulsing body, at Fenix, whose lips were already turning blue as his sister's crisis pulled him down too. I looked at my own hands, a wolf that destabilized other wolves, that made pups cry and ranked wolves aggressive. A wolf that couldn't be categorized because she was wrong, broken, a glitch, or maybe a wolf that could stabilize the unstabilizable. Fenix, I grabbed his shoulders. I need you to trust me. Oh, okay. I placed one hand on Ren's forehead. It was like touching a stove. I put my other hand on Fenix's chest, felt his heart racing too fast. And then I did something I hadn't done in 2 years. I let my wolf out. She surged forward like she'd been waiting for this moment her entire existence. My eyes started flickering. Gold, silver, amber. Gold, silver, amber. And I felt that familiar wrong cold energy pour through my body. But this time, I didn't fight it. I didn't try to suppress it or control it. I aimed it straight at the twins. My eyes settled into something they'd never done before. Not gold, not silver, not amber, prismatic, every color at once. Rainbow light that poured from my hands like liquid starlight. The energy flowed into Ren first. I felt her convulsions slow, felt her temperature drop from dangerous to merely concerning. Then into Fenix, whose blue lips pinked up as color returned to his face. The light built and built until I was glowing like a beacon, until the forest around us lit up like daylight, until I could see every vein of energy in both children's bodies and exactly where they were tangled wrong. I smoothed the tangles, balanced the energy, wove something new between them, a bridge made of my own wolf's power. Ren's eyes fluttered open, clear, healthy. Lyneth? She whispered. Fenix gasped. You're glowing. I looked down at my hands. Rainbow light danced across my skin, fading slowly like the last rays of sunset. I started. That's when I heard the howls. Not rogues, not hunters. These were organized, military, a coordinated hunting pattern that I recognized from pack training exercises a lifetime ago. And they were close. I'd spent 2 years learning how to disappear, how to be invisible, how to make sure no one ever looked at me too closely. And now, with rainbow light still crackling on my fingertips and 2 royal pups wrapped around my legs, I was about to meet the one wolf I couldn't hide from. The Alpha King. Their father. And apparently, the person who'd been hunting us since the moment we crossed into his territory. The howls got closer, and I realized running was no longer an option. If this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, if you need to know what happens when Lyneth meets the Alpha King, smash that like button right now. Hit subscribe because this journey is just getting started, and you're not going to want to miss what comes next. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I want to know I've got you hooked. Now let's see what happens when a broken wolf meets a king. Chapter 3. We reached the Blackthorn border at dawn. I'd carried Wren the last mile. She was still weak from the episode, while Phoenix held onto my belt loop and shuffled along beside me. The rainbow light had faded from my skin, but I could still feel it humming under my surface. My wolf felt different, settled, like she'd finally found her purpose after 23 years of confusion. The border was marked by massive stone pillars carved with wolves. The moment we crossed the invisible line, they appeared. 50 wolves, maybe more. They materialized from the trees like shadows given form, surrounding us in a perfect military formation. All of them had that deadly stillness that came from serious training. At the center stood a man who could only be the Alpha King. Rowan Blackthorn was massive, 6'5" of pure muscle and contained power. His eyes were the gold of an apex predator, and his presence hit me like a physical force. This was an alpha who could make other alphas kneel with a look. But he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at his children, and his entire face shattered. "Phoenix," he breathed. "Wren." The twins' heads snapped up. "Daddy!" They scrambled out of my arms and ran. I let them go, watched them sprint across the clearing. And then, the most powerful wolf in the Northern Territories dropped to his knees in the dirt. He gathered both children into his arms like they were the only thing in the world that mattered. His shoulders shook. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but his face was buried in their hair, and his hands were shaking as they ran over their bodies, checking for injuries. Not a king, just a father who thought he'd lost everything. Something in my chest twisted hard. The guards maintained their positions, but I saw a few of them look away, giving their king a private moment in the middle of a very public rescue. After what felt like forever, Rowan pulled back enough to look at his children. "Are you hurt? Did anyone—" "Lyneth saved us," Phoenix interrupted, grabbing his father's shirt. "She fought bad wolves and did the glow thing." "She made me stop shaking," Wren added. "When I got sick, she put her hands on me, and there was rainbow light and I could breathe again." Rowan's eyes finally found mine. The impact of that gaze nearly knocked me backward. It wasn't anger, it wasn't suspicion. It was something sharp and assessing and deeply, intensely focused. "You stabilized them." Not a question, a statement of fact that somehow felt like an accusation and a revelation at once. I don't know what I did," I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. "She was convulsing. I tried to help." Rowan stood slowly, twins still clinging to his legs. He was even more intimidating at full height. "Every healer in 4 territories has tried to stabilize them. No one could do what you're describing." I had no response to that. He gestured to his guards without breaking eye contact with me. "Take the children to the medical wing Full examination. I want Dr. Octavia personally. But Daddy, Wren started. Now. The command was gentle but absolute. 2 female guards stepped forward, both with kind faces, and carefully extracted the twins. Phoenix looked back at me with worried eyes. I tried to smile reassuringly, not sure I succeeded. Once the children were gone, Rowan's attention returned to me like the weight of a mountain. What's your name? Lyneth Ashmont. And what pack are you from, Lyneth Ashmont? I lifted my chin. None. I'm a rogue. Rogues don't stabilize dying pups. He moved closer, not threatening, but deliberate. Rogues don't produce rainbow light. And rogues certainly don't travel through 4 territories with royal children without asking for ransom. I didn't know they were royal when I found them, I said. They were just scared kids being hunted by traffickers. And yet you protected them anyway. Yes. Why? The question caught me off guard. Why? Because they were children. Because someone had to. Something flickered in his expression. Not quite a smile. Not quite relief. Something complicated that I couldn't read. You're coming with us, he said finally. My wolf bristled. I'm not. That wasn't a request. He raised a hand before I could argue. You saved my children's lives. You're not going anywhere until I understand how. Someone get this woman food, water, and a room in the main house. Guards materialized at my elbows, not grabbing, but definitely escorting. Is this protective or possessive? I asked, too tired to be diplomatic. Rowan's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Yes. Blackthorn Castle was ridiculous. I'd never seen anything like it. All stone towers and stained glass and corridors that seemed to go on forever. My room was bigger than the entire house I'd grown up in, with a bed so soft I was pretty sure it was illegal, and a bathroom that had something called a soaking tub that I had no idea how to operate. A servant brought clothes. Actual new clothes, not donation bin cast-offs. I almost cried over a pair of jeans that actually fit. The food was worse. They served me soup and bread and roasted chicken, and I had to remind myself to eat slowly or I'd make myself sick. I hadn't had a real meal in months. But I couldn't relax. Every shadow felt like a threat. Every footstep in the hallway made me tense. I was still a rogue in an Alpha King's castle. That was the definition of vulnerable. On day 2, the tests started. Dr. Octavia was an ancient wolf with silver hair and eyes like warm honey. She looked like someone's grandmother, spoke in a gentle voice, and had hands that were surprisingly strong when she examined me. This won't hurt, she said, drawing my blood for the 4th time. I'm just trying to understand your wolf's energy signature. And you're unlike anything I've ever seen. She said it with fascination, not judgment. Your energy doesn't read as alpha, beta, or omega. It reads as all of them, simultaneously. My old pack called it being broken? Octavia looked up sharply. Your old pack was ignorant. The bluntness startled a laugh out of me. Over the next 3 days, I learned the castle routines while Octavia ran every test known to wolfkind. I learned to navigate the maze of corridors. I learned that I was supposed to bow to ranked pack members, forgot most of the time. I learned that the formal dining room had 16 forks, and I had no idea which one to use, chose chaos, used a spoon. And I learned that Phoenix and Wren were excellent at sneaking. They appeared in my room every night like small, determined ghosts. The guards don't watch the servant stairs, Phoenix explained seriously while climbing onto my bed. We wanted to make sure you didn't leave, Wren added, curling up against my side like she belonged there. I should have sent them back, should have maintained boundaries. Instead, I read them stories from a book someone had left in my room. Let them fall asleep against my shoulders. Carried them back to their wing after midnight, stepping carefully around patrol routes I'd memorized. On the third night, I almost walked straight into Rowan in the corridor. He was in casual clothes, just a shirt and pants, barefoot. His hair was messed up like he'd been running his hands through it. He looked tired. Human. I started. Returning my children from their nightly escape attempt? He didn't sound angry. They do this to every guest. Consider it their version of vetting. They're good kids. They're terrors. But his voice was warm. They're also alive because of you. The healers confirmed it. Whatever you did stabilized their energy enough to give them 3 more days. 3 more days they wouldn't have had? 3 days! Not forever. The knowledge sat heavy in my chest. We stood in awkward silence. Wren snored softly against my shoulder. You could have left, Rowan said quietly. You could have left them at the border and disappeared. No one would have blamed you. I would have blamed me. He studied my face like he was memorizing it. Why do you help people who can't repay you? Maybe I'm just stupid. No. He said it with absolute certainty. You're not stupid. The air between us felt charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. I cleared my throat. I should get them to bed. Octavia wants to see us tomorrow, he said as I turned away. She says she found something. The library was all dark wood and old books and the smell of aged paper. Octavia had a massive leather-bound tome open on the desk, her hands trembling slightly. I need to show you something, she said when Rowan and I entered. She turned the book toward us. The pages were yellowed with age, the handwriting in some archaic script I couldn't read. But I could see the illustration. A wolf with prismatic eyes. My exact eyes. This is a genealogy record from 500 years ago, Octavia said. It documents a bloodline that was thought to be extinct. She traced the illustration with a careful finger. They were called harmonics. Wolves who existed outside the traditional ranking system because they weren't meant to be ranked. They were meant to be bridges. Bridges? I whispered. They could balance any wolf energy. Calm, aggressive alphas, strengthen weak omegas, heal sick pups. They were incredibly rare. And apparently, she looked at me with something like wonder. You're one of them. The room spun. That's not possible. I was tested. They said I was broken. They said you were broken because traditional tests can't read harmonics. Your wolf didn't destabilize other wolves. She was trying to harmonize with them, and nobody understood what she was doing. Rowan was staring at me like he was seeing me for the first time. The children. You stabilized them. Temporarily, yes, Octavia said. The connection Lyneth created will fade over the next few days. But if she were to form a permanent bond with them, a pack bond, or something stronger, the stabilization would become constant. The air in the room changed. You're suggesting? Rowan started. I'm suggesting that Lyneth is the only wolf in existence who can keep your children alive. The words hit me like a physical blow. The only one. Not a choice. A necessity. I looked at Rowan, saw the war on his face, hope and desperation and guilt. I'm asking you to stay, he said quietly, not ordering, asking. And if I say no, then I'll thank you for the time you gave them, and I'll let you go. His jaw clenched. But they'll die, Lyneth, within weeks, and I'll have to watch it happen. I thought about Phoenix's serious little face, Wren's fierce defiance, the way they curled up against me at night like I was safe. I thought about being needed, about having a purpose, about finally being something other than broken. I also thought about being trapped, about obligation masquerading as choice. I need time to think, I heard myself say. Rowan nodded once. Take all the time you need. I told him I needed time to think. I didn't tell him that I'd already made my decision the moment Wren grabbed my hand that afternoon and whispered, "Please don't leave us." I didn't tell him that my wolf was already halfway bonded to his children, that severing that connection would hurt worse than my pack exile. And I definitely didn't tell him about the strange, pulling sensation I felt every time he got within 10 feet of me. The one that made my skin buzz and my heart race. The one that felt suspiciously like, no, I wasn't going there. Not yet. I spent that night in the castle garden, trying to convince myself that this was just about the children. That the way Rowan looked at me, like I was something precious instead of broken, didn't make my stomach flip. That I could stay here, save Phoenix and Wren, and keep my heart completely out of it. I was very good at lying to other people. Apparently, I was terrible at lying to myself. Chapter 4. The garden was silver under the half moon. All manicured hedges and night-blooming flowers that smelled like jasmine and something wilder. I sat on a stone bench, my borrowed castle clothes feeling too clean, too nice, like I was playing dress-up in someone else's life. Footsteps on gravel made me turn. Rowan approached slowly, like I was a spooked animal that might bolt. He was still in his casual clothes from earlier, still barefoot, still looking more human than king. "They're asking for you again," he said quietly. "Wren wants you to read her the story about the moon rabbits. Phoenix wants to know if you'll teach him the drainage tunnel escape trick you used at the truck stop." Despite everything, I smiled. How does he even know about that? He asked very specific questions. Rowan's mouth quirked. And he's scarily good at extracting tactical information. Wonder where he gets that from. No idea. The almost smile faded. "Lyneth, I need you to know, whatever you decide, I won't force you. If you want to leave, I'll give you money, supplies, safe passage to any territory you choose. You've already given my children more time than they would have had." "That's generous?" "It's the bare minimum." He moved closer, but didn't sit. "They love you, you know. In 3 days, you've become essential to them in a way I didn't think was possible." My throat tightened. "I love them too." That's the problem." "Why is that a problem?" "Because loving people who need me means I can't tell if I'm staying for them or staying because I don't have anywhere else to go." The words came out harsher than I meant. I've spent 2 years being nothing to everyone. Now I'm suddenly everything to someone, but only because of what I can do, not because of who I am. Rowan was quiet for a long moment. Then he sat beside me on the bench, careful to leave space between us. "Can I tell you something?" "Okay." When my mate died, the twins' mother, I thought I was done. Not just with love, with feeling anything that wasn't duty or responsibility. His voice was low, measured, like he was confessing something he'd never said out loud. "For 7 years, I've been the Alpha King. I've been a father. I've been a leader. But I haven't been me." Just Rowan, the wolf who likes reading old books and hates formal dinners and sometimes wishes he could just be normal. I looked at him, really looked, saw the exhaustion in the lines around his eyes, the weight he carried in the set of his shoulders. "And then you showed up," he continued, glowing like a damn rainbow, with my children clinging to you like you hung the moon. And for the first time in 7 years, I felt something that wasn't duty. My heart was hammering. "What did you feel?" He turned to face me. "Hope." The word hung between us, fragile and terrifying. "I won't force you to stay," Rowan said, "but I need you to know something." He held out his hand, palm up, an offering, not a demand. I stared at it, at the calluses and scars, at the way his fingers trembled slightly, like he was as nervous as I was. I took his hand. The world exploded, not violently, not painfully, but like every cell in my body suddenly recognized its other half. Like I'd been walking through life slightly out of sync, and someone just snapped me into alignment. The mate bond slammed into place with the force of a freight train and the gentleness of coming home. I gasped. Rowan's eyes went wide. "What?" I started. "That's a mate bond," he breathed. "That's a mate bond." But I was already rejected. Garrett was never your mate." Rowan's hand tightened on mine. "The bond was incomplete because you hadn't come into your full harmonic abilities yet. Your wolf was waiting." "Waiting for what?" He smiled, soft, genuine, hopeful. "For someone who would see you, not as broken, not as other, but as extraordinary." Tears burned my eyes. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be a mate or a mother or whatever a harmonic is supposed to be. "Neither do I. I've been alone for 7 years. He cupped my face gently, his thumb brushing away a tear. "But here you are, the woman who saved my children. The woman my wolf has been howling for since the moment I saw you. What if I mess this up? Then we'll mess it up together, and we'll figure it out." His forehead touched mine. "For them. For us." I looked up at the castle, saw 2 small faces pressed against a window, watching us. Phoenix and Wren, waving frantically when they caught my eye. Something in my chest settled, clicked into place. "I want one thing," I said. "Anything." The pack that rejected me. I want them to know that being different wasn't a curse. It was a gift. And they were too blind to see it. Rowan's grin was sharp and satisfied. "Done. I'll personally deliver the message. Not revenge," I clarified. "Just vindication. The best kind." He pulled back slightly. "So you'll stay?" I thought about Phoenix's questions and Wren's sass, about Octavia's gentle teaching and the feeling of purpose that came from healing instead of breaking, about this man who looked at me like I was precious instead of damaged. "Yeah," I said. "I'll stay." Rowan kissed me. It wasn't dramatic. No fireworks or earth-shaking passion. Just tender and careful and absolutely right. Like coming home after a long, exhausting journey. When we pulled apart, the twins were cheering from the window. "They're not subtle," I said. "Not even a little bit." Rowan laughed, and the sound made my heart soar. Think you can handle being a Luna? Think you can handle being mated to a harmonic who has no idea what she's doing? I think we'll figure it out together." And somehow, impossibly, I believed him. 6 months later, Garrett stood at the Blackthorn territory border, holding an invitation. The paper trembled in his hands. Behind him, a dozen wolves from the Ashmont pack whispered and stared. "You are cordially invited to the mating ceremony of Alpha King Rowan Blackthorn and Harmonic Lyneth Ashmont." His father, former Beta Corwin, stood beside him, face gray. "We should go back." "No." Elder Tabor's voice was quiet. "We owe her this. We owe her witness." They weren't the only ones who'd come. Half the Ashmont pack had made the journey, drawn by curiosity or guilt, or the simple need to see if the rumors were true. The woman they'd called Broken had become the most powerful Luna in the Northern Territories. The guards at the border were courteous but firm. "Guests proceed to the ceremony grounds. No pack challenge will be acknowledged today." They walked through territory that hummed with health and prosperity. past wolves who nodded respectfully, past children playing without fear. The ceremony grounds were magnificent, white silk and night-blooming flowers, and hundreds of witnesses from every major pack. And at the center, wearing a dress that shimmered like starlight, stood Lyneth. She looked different. Not just the expensive clothes or the way she carried herself. Her eyes, those prismatic, impossible eyes, shone without shame, without apology. She looked free. Phoenix and Wren stood beside her as ring-bearers, healthy and glowing and absolutely delighted to be part of the ceremony. They'd grown in 6 months, but they still clung to Lyneth like she was their anchor. Rowan stood across from her, looking at her like she'd hung every star in the sky personally. The officiant began. "We gather under the moon goddess's light to witness the mating bond between..." Garrett stopped listening. He watched Lyneth smile, watched her take Rowan's hands without hesitation, watched her accept everything, mate, mother, harmonic, Luna, with a grace she'd never shown in the Ashmont pack, because she'd never been allowed to. "Do you, Rowan Blackthorn, accept this bond freely and completely?" "I do," Rowan's voice carried across the grounds. "I see you, Lyneth, not for what you can do, but for who you are, and who you are is extraordinary." "Do you, Lyneth Ashmont, I accept this bond freely and completely?" Lyneth's smile was radiant. "I do. I see you too, Rowan, and I choose this. I choose us." The bond sealed with light, prismatic and beautiful, that made everyone gasp. Phoenix and Wren cheered. The crowd erupted in celebration. And Garrett understood finally what he'd lost. Not just a potential mate, but a chance to see someone for who they really were instead of what he'd expected them to be. Later, when the celebration was in full swing, Lyneth found the Ashmont pack delegation. She didn't gloat, didn't sneer. She just looked at her father and said, "I forgive you." Corwin's face crumpled. "Lyneth, I forgive you," she repeated. "Not because you deserve it, but because I'm done carrying what you made me believe about myself." She turned to Garrett. "And you. Thank you." He blinked. "For what?" "For rejecting me. If you hadn't, I never would have found the people who were actually meant for me." She glanced back at Rowan, who was being mobbed by the twins. "So genuinely, thank you." She walked away without looking back, and Garrett understood that she wasn't proving them wrong. She was proving to herself that she'd always been enough. That night, after the guests had gone and the twins were finally asleep, Lyneth stood in her new quarters, their quarters now, and looked at herself in the mirror. Prismatic eyes looked back. Eyes that used to flicker with confusion now glowed steady and sure. Rowan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking?" "That I spent so long trying to be what everyone else wanted." She leaned back against him. And it turned out the moon goddess just needed me to be exactly what I was. A harmonic. A bridge." She turned in his arms. Between what was broken and what's healing. Between what was lost and what's found. He kissed her forehead. "I love you." "I love you too." She smiled. "Even when you let the twins stay up past bedtime. They have important questions about drainage tunnel tactics. They're 5. Precocious 5. She laughed, and the sound filled their room with warmth. Sometimes the moon goddess doesn't make mistakes. Sometimes she just makes wolves the world isn't ready for yet. And sometimes, if you're really lucky, she sends you a family who's been waiting for you all along. So there it is. A woman who was called broken became the bridge that held a kingdom together. If this story moved you, if you felt Lyneth's pain and her triumph, I need you to do something for me. hit that subscribe button. Smash the like. Because stories like this, about second chances and finding your true family, they matter. And I want to keep telling them. Drop a comment and tell me, what part hit you hardest? Was it the rejection? The healing? The moment she chose herself? I want to hear from you. Because you're not just watching this story. You're part of it. And I'm so grateful you're here.